Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. This video is going to be part 2 of our Asset Master Material series. If this is your first video to the series, I'd recommend going watching the previous one, as I do put an explanation into why you will want to use master materials in your environment, and I preview the kind of workflow we're going to be using throughout the series. So it would be really good if you go and check that video out as well and like it while you're there. But in this video, what I want to do is to concentrate on the base foundations of a master material. So we'll expose our texture samples and give our artists some decent controls to control the look of their asset. So by the end of this video, I reckon it'll be ready to use with Quixel assets quite easily, which is one of these here. It'll be good enough to use on them. So what I want to do is to start building from this master logic function that we created in the previous video, and the first things I'm going to want is some texture samples. I'm going to drag a texture sample in. If you right click and just type texture, you'll see there that we get a texture sample. The first things you want to do with your texture samples is to change them from texture asset in the sampler source to shared wrap. This stops any existing infringements when you don't need them, instructions sorry, when you don't really need them. So we're going to duplicate one more because we want an albedo, a stack texture and a normal, and we're going to use these. Okay, so now these are our shared wrap. What I want to do is to give these some UVs. We could do this two ways. What do you think? So let's get a landscape layer quads, because you may have assets that are used on a masked landscape, like in the series we're doing now, which is called Build Worlds. It's another series on this channel. It's a bigger series. So we have a landscape layer chords here, and if you hold U on the keyboard and left click, you'll get a texture coordinate. Now what I want to do is to give our artists the ability to switch in between these and choose whichever one they want. So what I will do is grab one multiplier for the texture coordinates, and we'll get a divide for the landscape layer coordinates. We'll just plug that in there like so. We'll drag off our landscape layer coordinates and get a input function like this. So just type input and you'll get a function input. This is a scalar parameter on the input type. We want to keep that like that. Let's call this landscape UV scale. Okay, and we're going to use this as a preview by enabling use preview value as default. And what this does is basically, outside of this function, when you come to input your parameters here, if you don't have one in, you're not using it, it will just fall back to this as default. And to use a preview, just hold 1 on the keyboard and just plug that into there like so. And what I'll do, I'll just set this to 0.1 as a default, because using a divide node, the values need to be really small. My mistake, they need to be rather large actually. So I'm going to put 100 in there just as a default. It could be wrong, it's not really important that. Okay, so we've got a landscape layer coordinates, we've got a texture coordinate here. I'm going to use this with a multiply. We'll drag off here, get an input function again, like so, and we'll call this asset UV scale, like so. Okay, and we'll set a preview to this as well. We'll hold 1 on the keyboard and left click and get a constant 1 vector, and we'll just put a value of 1 in here as a default. Like I say, we don't really need it that much, and we'll drag this down so it's a bit more neat and tidy. So like I say, I want to enable our artists to be able to switch in between these to whatever they want to use. What I want to do is use the asset UV scale as a default. I'll showcase what I mean. If we right click again and just type static and get in the function section, we'll get a static switch. And if this value is going to be true, it'll use the landscape layer cards. If it's false, it'll just use the standard default asset UVs. And we'll drag this down and we can simply drag off this value here for the switch and get an input function again. And you'll see it's already set to a static bool in the input type. And in here we can put enable land, will I spell that right? Yeah, landscape UVs. Yeah, a couple of question marks. We'll use the preview as well for this, and we'll drag off the preview and just type bool, and we want the switch bool, which is default set to false, which you would want. Okay, so now we've got a switch where we can choose in between using the landscape cards or texture coordinates. And what we want to do is to keep this all organized. So we're going to highlight them all, press C on the keyboard and get a comment box. And we'll call this material UVs, just like that. And this is just my personal thing, you don't have to do it, but I'm going to set the font to 30. And the colour can be some kind of greyish. I'll tell you what, I'll give it a red band. So what I mean by red band, if I set this up like that, if you come to the alpha of your colour picker and set that to 0, it'll just leave the box empty, but there's a red band at the top. Press OK, and it still works as usual. Okay, so now that is enabled, what I'm going to use as well in this master material is what they call splitters. I'll showcase that now. It's just using an input function like this. I'll just duplicate it and change this name. And we'll call this material UVs. Yeah. I'm going to put some dashes on the end, each end, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. You'll see what this is going to do outside of this material function, but I'm going to leave the set priority as 0. This splitter enables us to set the priority, so if I leave this to 0, and then with the switch input function, I'm going to set this to a 1, the set priority, so it comes under that, and then I will do the asset set priority as number 2. And the landscape one as number 3. Okay, so if I hit apply with this now and just quickly save it, come to the parameters, you'll see here I've got material UVs. Now we don't have to put anything into there and you won't get an error if you don't, but it just enables us to have our UVs. But you can see there the asset UV scale and all that good stuff, but we'll come to that later on in the video. Okay, so now that's enabled, we're just going to drag off this switch into each UVs of these texture samples. Right, so, and what I want to do now is to work on our texture samples. Okay, so we've got them here. Let's move that up so that middle one's straight, weird like that. I'm going to drag off this first texture input of our texture sample. Right, so I'm getting an input function. You can see that it comes out with a input type of a texture 2D, so it's going to expect texture 2D. But in this one, we're going to call it the albedo texture. Like so. We'll set the preview. And to get this preview, we're just going to use a placeholder. So I'm going to get this texture sample, left control and D and duplicate it. Then we're going to right click on it and change this to a texture object, and this you will be able to plug into these previews. In here we'll just get a placeholder, so make sure you click on your texture object and in the texture slot here click on it and just type place, and you should see a placeholder texture. Now I'm going to use this one. The one with VT means it's a virtual texture, you don't want to use that, and we'll just use the normal black one like this. We'll do that and we'll plug that straight into there. And what I want to do is do the same for the stack texture and the normal. So I'll drag off there, input function, it's texture 2D, we can just call this stack texture. We'll set this preview as well. Let's do this dead quick. We could just use that same placeholder. It's not really a problem. We'll get an input function again. I'm going to call this normal texture. Like so. Do that preview again. And we'll use that as our preview. Like this. We'll just straighten this up a little bit, guys. Nice and straight, equal. There we go. There we go. Okay, so there are inputs for our textures. If I highlight all this comment box and put this as texture maps. So, font to 30, and we will use just a weird pink colour. I'm going to leave that as it is. Okay. I'm going to do the same as I did with the material UVs. I'm going to give it a splitter. For this, you could just highlight any of them, whichever one you want. You can just change the name. I'm going to use them dashes again. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll call this textures. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to work this way now. If you look at this one, the material, the set priority is 0, and then our material UVs are numbered after that. For the texture samples, if we look at the last one, which was our landscape UVs, it was set to a set priority number 3. So for the textures one, I'm going to set this priority to 5, just to be safe, just in case we add anything more. Actually, I'll start from 10, just to do in case later down the line we do need more UVs. So I'll start the set priority at 10. And from here we'll do the albedo first, so this will be 11. The stack texture will be 12. And the normal will be 13. Okay, so if we hit apply and save, I'm really hoping that this doesn't crash. Okay, so you can see at the bottom here we've got our textures, texture 2D, we've got our albedo, stacked and normal. And this is basically what these splitters do. They split it up here so they're more organised. And it will become more apparent later in the video. This. Okay, so now we have got to straighten that out. There you go. Now we've got our UVs and our texture map set up. We are going to start with the base colour first. Okay, this comes the point where I want to think about it. The colour picker, I'm not going to use that just yet. I may come to that in a bit. I may do. What I am going to use though is this colour brightness. I'm going to want to use that first. I'm just going to drag off the RGB of our albedo texture and put that in there. Let me think. I'm just thinking now whether it's a good idea to put a switch in here to enable or disable us using the textures. I may add it later. I'll just do this for now, otherwise the video will get really long, just to enable switches for each of them. So now we've got this, I want to add some desaturation to our base colour. So if I just drag off the multiply and type desaturation, there it is in the colour preset. And we can simply drag off the function input and just type input function, or function input if you like. And we'll call this albedo. Let me think. No, we'll just call it desaturation. Desaturation. Missed the key then. Desaturation. Right, so we'll use a preview. And we'll just get a constant 1 vector by holding 1 on the keyboard and left clicking. We'll drag that off up here. Let's try and keep this as tidy as possible. Did I set this as a preview? Yes, I did. I'll just throw this under there, I think. Move this up. What else do we want? Maybe some contrast would be nice. A lot of people would go to contrast and get a cheap contrast, but that is just adding more instructions when you don't really need them, even though it's a good setup for contrast. That for something like this you don't really need a cheap contrast. It's more for blending in my eyes, that contrast. I'm going to delete that and just simply use a power node. We can drag off this exponent of our power and get an input function again, and we shall call this contrast. So set the preview up, and I'll just drag off this 0, put that in there as well. Okay, we can throw this into our base color, and that seems to be working okay. Wait there, what happens if I put this into the preview? It's just the same thing. We'll leave it at that preview at 0, doesn't really matter, like I said. We're going to leave that colour picker there. I may come to it. What it is, I'm thinking in the future I want to enable us to move props around in the scene and it automatically pick a different shade of colour for us. In fact, I'll just get rid of it. We'll just get rid of it. We'll use it at another time. If I need it, I'll bring it in. So I'm going to highlight these, press C, call this base / albedo. Yeah, just like that. I'll set the font to 30 and choose a random colour like that. Make it a little bit bigger. Like so. Oh, there's one thing I am missing, and that's a splitter. So I'll get this, left control and D and duplicate it. Just change this name. 1, 2, 3, 4 dashes, and we'll call this albedo dash color. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so our last splitter was set at 10. I can't see us adding to this in the future. And the last one was 13, so maybe I could start this from 15. Can I see us adding to this in the future? Let's just be safe and put on 20. So I'm thinking we could enable a switch where we could change the stat texture. But yeah, it's not a really big deal. We'll just use 20 for this. And then we can, wait there, let me think. Yeah, we'll start with 20 like I say, sorry about that. Okay, so from here we'll set the brightness as a 21, desaturation as a 22, and the contrast as a 23. In fact, I'm going to use the metallic in here as well. I'm going to set this to 24. And I'll just drag this metallic up here into there. Maybe drag it down a bit. Do this. Pin in there. If you don't know how to get that pin, just highlight it. See where the noodle comes bright white. Once it's highlighted like that, just double click and you'll get a pin in there, no problems. Okay, so that's the base albedo. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the specular just yet. I may derive from the albedo, but that's for another video, I think. This could be our roughness. Yeah, we'll just comment this straight away. Roughness. Think. Okay, default font at 30, and we'll just give this a gold colour. Like so, and we'll use a separator in here as well. Just highlight that one, duplicate it, put it in here, get rid of that, and we shall get rid of all this roughness. Like so, and that was 20, so this can be 30. I will set it to 30 because we will probably add to this base colour in the future with quite a bit of logic, so it's good to keep them separated. So roughness 30. We're going to put the switch first. That'll be 31. Oh, wait there. 31. And then our standard roughness values. What's that? 31. This roughness can be 32, and the min 33, and the max can be 34. Okay, so with this, the lerp needs an alpha, and I do know that Quixel's stat texture, that the green channel is a roughness texture. Just double click and get a pin in there as well. Okay, so now that is sorted. I'm just thinking now for this stat texture. Normally this is the ambient occlusion, which is there. But they seem to have replaced it with a texture. I don't know what it is. So for now, I'm just going to leave that out. What I'll have to do, guys, is off camera, I'll research the new texture set for Quixel. If you already know what that red channel texture is, wait there, let me just find one. Megascans, 3D assets. We'll just do this Nordic boulder. And this is the stat texture that comes with Quixel. If we open this up and just expose the red channel, I'm not entirely sure what this is. Now, I don't know if that's bad for me, in my experience, but I'm just being honest, I'm not sure what it is. But also, this is our roughness, as everyone knows, but the blue channel has a black texture, which is used as a mask for fuzz. Now, I am going to give our artists the ability to use fuzz if they want to. So to do this, I'm just going to drag off this blue channel of our stat texture, and I'll just get a static switch. It was set to true. How should we do this? And we'll just use a constant 1 vector, 0, and put that in the false. The reason I'm doing this, just bear with me, I've got to straighten this up, it's bugging me already. Like I said in previous videos, I'm weird like that, but never mind. We'll add another pin out here, a bit more organised. Okay, so when you use a 0 as a constant 1 vector in a switch statement, 0 is just false, so it doesn't do anything. We'll drag off here and we'll get an input function, or function input. And we shall enable fuzz function, like so. And what we'll do in another video, we'll just copy the fuzz function from Quixel, just in case people want to use it. For this, I'm just going to set the priority at, say, 200. This makes sure it's right at the bottom, out of the way. We'll just duplicate this. It's set to fault by default. What I want to do is, if I check this output here, I can give our function 2 different outputs. So with this, I'll just call this base material. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking it's set priority set to 0. If I duplicate this now, and you could just call this fuzz out, like so. We'll set the priority to 1, and we can do that, and we can just drag off this switch statement and pull that in there, like so. I may even actually just drag it here, so it's all together. Okay, so now we've set up the ability, and what this will do now, if I just quickly apply this, come to our thingy, our master logic parameters function bit, you'll see our things are all nearly sorted out here, but I've got this output as well. So in here, like in another video maybe, in here I could create another fuzz function, or get that fuzz function from Quixel and just put that in here and give it an output. But I'll showcase that at a later date. We just set it up for now. We comment this, fuzz function, so 30 for the font size, and we'll just use this weird colour here, like so. Okay, I'm going to have to make this a little bit bigger and put this pin at the end. Okay, so that's that sorted out. What I want to do now is just to do our normals to finish up this video. Like I said, I'll find out what this red channel texture is off camera. So what I'm going to do for this actually, guys, I'm going to build our own function for normals. In previous videos, if you've been following this channel, you'll see I always use a flatten normal node, and then I'll get a 1 - to flip it, because this function flattens a normal. So the value of 0, the normal is intense, and at 1 it's just completely flat. So I'd use a 1 - in there and invert it. But I do actually want to showcase making our own function for this. So I'll come into materials, mesh material, and then I'm going to right click, go to materials, material function, using my naming convention, KM. We'll just call this normal func, like so. We're going to open this function up. The output is missing, we'll just call that result. Normal result. Leave that like that. Right, how do you set this up now? Let me think. We need component mask. I want to expose the X and Y, which is red and green. I'm going to duplicate it and set this to the blue, like so. I'm going to drag off this component mask, type input, get a function input, and for this it's going to be coming from a texture sample here. It's going to come from the RGB, and what an RGB is, it's a vector 3. So in this function, what I do know is we need to change the input type to a vector 3, like so. And this could be normal texture, like so. 0 priority. We don't need to set a priority for this, guys. Preview, sorry, not priority. What I need to do is drag off this component mask and get a multiply, like so. And this multiply is going to enable us to increase and decrease. So if we get input, function input, we can leave this as a scalar parameter, and we'll just call this normal intensity. Like so. We'll set this preview with a constant 1 vector and set this value to 1. It's a default. So we'll plug that into that preview. Close this up. Let's make that a bit bigger. Let's neaten this up a little bit, guys. So we'll just do that. We'll do that. It's kind of symmetrical. And we just simply need to append these together. So an append vector. We'll do this. We'll append that back in there. And we want to append our mask into there. Just double click there and get a pin. And there you go. And that's how easy it is to make a normal function. So at the minute we're increasing the normal intensity on the X and Y axes. You don't want to do it on the B because it'll become ugly. Anyway, so we'll wait there before we continue, guys. On the left hand side, if you click anywhere in the grey, on the left hand side you'll have exposed to library. Just check that and then hit apply and save. Close that off, come back to our logic, and we could just simply drag our normal function into here. And you'll see there. Oh wait there. Let's open this up again. We'll set the normal intensity, the set priority as a 1. So this input becomes below the normal texture input. Click apply, save. And then we'll come back in here, and now you'll see we need the RGB of our normal texture to go in there. So put that there. Okay, so actually I'm going to open the function again, and I'm just going to left control and C on this input, and we'll get rid of it. And we'll put left control and V, oh wait there, left control and V, get that input, we'll throw that into the normal intensity. And this now as our normal setup, and this is just a basic normal. There's a lot you can do with this, guys. At a later stage I will be duplicating this and adding detailed normals to our material, but like I said at the beginning of the video, this is just a base start to our master material. We're going to highlight them all and see, call this normals, like so. Change that font size to 30, and this can be a blue or normal. Okay, that seems to be okay at the minute. We've got albedo and base color, some roughness, fuzz function if we need it, and normals. And this now is just the base setup. Obviously we have specular. I may derive from the albedo, but I'll do that in another video. Opacity. There's a lot of things we can add here, but at the minute that is it for this. Right, this is the point. It sometimes will crash. Oh no, the shaders are compiling. That's great. Just let these compile. Should take a minute. There we go. All compiled. Save it. Come to the master parameters and apply this. Quick, and now you see we've got all these set up here. So hang on a minute, so it doesn't seem right. Albedo. Like that, normal, like that. Normal intensity. Let's give a splitter to this normal. We will need it in the future. But just left control and C, control and V. Just duplicate that. Roughness. So this is the roughness is 30. Oh wait there. Sorry about this. I need to correct this. These are the normals. So there we go. Okay, so the last one, that was 200. The roughness is set to 30, so the normals we're going to use at 40. And then the normal intensity can be 41. The reason I've done that is, like I just said, we're going to be doing more additions to our normals. But that will come, like I say, in a later video. I don't want to showcase everything in one video, otherwise the video would be about 3-4 hours long, and we don't want that on this channel. Okay, so if I hit apply, please don't crash. Save. Apply. There we go. And now our normals are here. Okay, so what I want to do now is just to apply our parameters like this. I'm going to delete all them, and what I'm going to do now is just right click on here and promote to a parameter. What I do is press right on the arrows on the keyboard and get rid of that initial in brackets. The initials in brackets are just saying what they are, so it's a scalar parameter, texture 2D and boolean, but like I say, we don't need that. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to speed up the video. I'm just going to right click on these and promote to a parameter, and I shall be back when I've done. That won't be a second. Okay, now we're back, and I've added all these parameters here, which is decent at the minute. Now it's completely up to you if you want to go through each function and add defaults into here. So you click on each parameter, yeah, each parameter, sorry, and then the default value you can give it default. It's up to you if you want to do that. In here I'm going to put some placeholders. So placeholder white. It's not a virtual texture. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, sorry. That's not. Okay, so we're going to hit apply. There we go. Stat texture. Placeholder again. I'm just going to use a black one for this if I can find the placeholder black. There it is. There we go. And the normal, you can get a placeholder normal as well. Yeah. Some virtual texture. No, I don't think it is. Yeah, it is. That one is as well. Jesus. That one's not. Okay, hit apply. Okay, so in fact, all the shaders are preparing now. I'm just going to whiz through these. They're quick and give default values. So one for the brightness, desaturation can be a 0.1, contrast could be a 1, metallic could be a 0.1. No, wait there, 0.1. Oh yeah, 0.01. Sorry. Metallic, roughness. This could be 0.8. Roughness minimum I'm going to set to a 0.3, maximum is going to be a 0.8, like so. Oh wait, there, max can be a 1 actually. Normal intensity will set as default 1. Okay, we'll save. If we come there, that's it. That's basically it. We don't need the fuzz yet. There's not a worry. We're getting no errors, which is good. I'm just going to save this to quick before it crashes. I don't think it'll crash, but you never know with Unreal Engine. Okay, so now all these are set to white, which is completely fine because they don't have textures in it, they just have white placeholders. I think it is anyway. Yeah, white placeholders, that's why they're white. What I'm going to do, I'm going to open this material instance and just showcase what we've done. You can see here we've got quite a few parameters just yet. I'm just going to test this real quick with this asset. What I want to do is click on the mesh itself. If I click on the magnifying glass on the static mesh and the details panel, it'll take me to that folder and you'll see I got the textures from right here. Where's our stat texture? Let me just go in here to quick. Do I need to enable it somewhere? Let me just see. Let me see. If I enable roughness. Oh, sweet. There's been the stat texture there. I'll just set these to default. So enable detail roughness. Ah, wait there. That is because it's essentially only needing this switch. What should we do here? Let me think. Drag this up a bit. Just get these and drag them up some. Like that. Hold M on the keyboard, get a multiplier in here. And we'll just drag off this pin, like so. And then we'll just put that multiplier into the false. Like that. Okay. Now I think this should work. So apply, save, and if I let the shaders compile, if I disconnect detail roughness, then we still get the stat texture. So essentially what it's doing, it's asking us, do we want to use the detail roughness? And because we're using the texture, the roughness map, the roughness texture, then if we enable detail, it'll enable the texture map. But if not, we just add a standard roughness. But not everyone is going to want, not every artist will want to use detailed roughness, but still use the roughness texture. We could possibly correct that once we build a bit of logic on our other channels of that texture, but we'll see in the future for that. Let's add these textures in here. So we're just going to click these checkboxes to expose these, and we'll just drag them in there. Like so, and that's the albedo, the normal, and the stat texture. Okay, so let's just quickly test this out before the end of the video. We'll click on the asset, press F, get close to it, and let's just see if these values are working. So we're going to expose the contrast, desaturation, and normal intensity. Put a 0 for the normal. 120, yeah, oh god, the normals are working. 10, yeah, 1. So if I put 12, oh wow, so over 1. Oh wait there, no, if I put a 2, there you go. That's nice. That's a nice normal that. You can see it just flaking up here a little bit. The fuzz, this will be the fuzz. This little green patch here, you see, but let's not get distracted. So roughness we'll set to a 0. Comes a little bit shiny, and if we increase the metallic, that's nice, isn't it? There we go. Nice metallic look, even though we don't need that. Normal intensity keep at 1, roughness we'll keep at 0.3, 0.5, 0.8, 9. Just put 1 in there to be exact. Brightness, put this to a 0, yeah, 1, 2, 3, yeah. 0.8, it's about right. Asset UV scale, you don't really need this on a Quixel asset because their textures are made because they're scanned assets. So if I like increase this to 2, it just looks all weird. 3, 5, it just looks dead weird. So you don't necessarily need UV scaling on Quixel assets, although you will do on alert props. So enable landscape UVs. If we enable that, we get landscape UVs here, and you can see they don't work very well, which is correct if you like. 1, oh it does, 0.1, yeah 1, and it looks fine with 1 actually. So yeah, that is our functionality. Contrast, color brightness is right, contrast 0, yeah, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 0.8, yeah, 1.5, yeah, that looks fine, that's great. Okay, this seems to be working just fine. Ready for Quixel assets or desaturation. Yeah, that's working, look at that now. If we put this to like 30, ugh, ugly. So yeah, that's working. Okay. So at the minute we've built our ground up running ready. The logic is fine. This is our, like I say, our base foundation setup. So guys, if you found this useful, this video, then hit that subscribe button and that like button. It really does go a long way to help my channel grow with this free learning content for Unreal Engine. So yeah, that'll be great, and look forward to the next video where we will be, I'm not decided what we're going to be looking at yet, but yeah, look forward to the next video guys, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.